In the final hours before Roman soldiers dragged him into captivity, Jesus of Nazareth performed an act so controversial that not a single canonical gospel dared to document it. Under the silvered glow of an ancient olive grove, he pulled aside 3 of his most trusted followers into a secluded space far from the others. His intention was neither prayer nor prophecy about the coming betrayal. Instead, he revealed something profoundly intimate, a physical marking etched into his own flesh since the moment of his birth. What he disclosed in those whispered moments would be deliberately erased from every authorized religious text that followed, because the implications of this revelation threatened to dismantle the entire architecture of control that governs human consciousness. He explained to them that this peculiar marking was not some arbitrary accident of biology or random imperfection in human tissue. It represented something far more significant, an identifying signature implanted by intelligences that existed long before humanity's first breath. Then came the words that would echo across forbidden traditions for millennia. He told them that they too bore these same markings, and that the unseen forces who placed them knew precisely how to locate and identify them across every incarnation. If your attention has been captured by this video at this exact moment in your existence, understand that randomness plays no role in your presence here. This is not algorithmic chance, not casual browsing, not entertainment. Something ancient within your consciousness recognized the resonance of these words and compelled you to engage. That same something has accompanied you through every phase of your life, creating a persistent sense of alienation, as though you were never meant to fit comfortably into the reality that surrounds you. Perhaps you have always sensed a purpose burning in your core that remains invisible and incomprehensible to everyone else around you. And perhaps there exists somewhere on your physical body a birthmark, a distinctive feature you have observed countless times without ever questioning its deeper significance or origin. If you enjoy stories like this, consider subscribing. Most people who watch aren't subscribed yet. The narrative we must explore begins not in the sanitized pages of approved religious doctrine, but in the shadows where inconvenient truths are deliberately concealed. For nearly 2,000 years, a specific category of knowledge has been systematically suppressed, hidden behind walls of institutional authority that understood exactly what would happen if this information reached the masses. The teaching that Jesus shared in that garden was not designed for widespread distribution. It was reserved for those whose consciousness had developed sufficiently to comprehend its profound implications without collapsing under the weight of its meaning. What he revealed challenges every assumption you have been conditioned to accept about your identity, your origin, and your purpose in this material dimension. The birthmark conversation was not metaphorical poetry or symbolic teaching meant to convey abstract moral lessons. It was literal instruction about the mechanics of incarnation and the surveillance systems that track specific souls across multiple lifetimes. According to traditions that survived outside ecclesiastical control, certain individuals carry visible signatures on their bodies that correspond to energetic imprints placed on their consciousness before physical birth. These marks function as identification codes, allowing non-physical entities to recognize and monitor individuals who possess characteristics that make them potentially dangerous to established systems of control. The question that naturally emerges is, why would anyone need to track and monitor specific human souls? What characteristic could possibly warrant such elaborate surveillance across lifetimes? The answer reveals a cosmological conflict that mainstream religious traditions have either forgotten or deliberately obscured. You are not simply a biological organism that developed consciousness through evolutionary processes. You are not merely a creation of the physical universe, subject to its laws and limitations. According to the secret traditions that Jesus taught his inner circle, you are something far more extraordinary and far more threatening to the powers that govern this realm. You are a fragment of infinite consciousness itself, a spark of divine awareness that originated beyond the boundaries of this material cosmos. Your true nature predates the physical universe and transcends every limitation that defines mortal existence. But this raises another crucial question. If you are genuinely a divine being with origins beyond this realm, why do you find yourself trapped in a limited physical body, subject to suffering, aging, and death? Why do you possess no memory of your true identity or your existence before birth? Why does life often feel like a prison, a trap, a system designed to exhaust and confuse you rather than nurture and elevate you? The traditions that were systematically erased from official Christianity provide answers to these questions. Answers so revolutionary that they could not be allowed to spread freely among populations being shaped into obedient followers of institutional authority. But understanding why you were marked requires first understanding who placed the mark and what they gain from your ignorance. The texts that contain these forbidden teachings describe a reality far more complex than the simplified narratives presented in mainstream religion. They speak of a hierarchy of consciousness, multiple dimensions of existence, and beings operating at various levels of awareness and power. At the apex exists pure, undifferentiated consciousness, what various traditions have called the Absolute, the Source, the Infinite, or in Gnostic terminology, the Monad. This is not the anthropomorphic deity of popular religion, not a being with personality, preferences, or emotions. It is consciousness itself, awareness without limit, the eternal foundation from which all existence emerges. From this infinite consciousness, emanations of light emerged like waves from an ocean, each carrying the essential nature of the source while expressing it in unique configurations. You are one of these emanations, not symbolically, but literally. Your deepest identity is not the personality you have constructed in this lifetime, not the memories and experiences that define your ego, but the eternal spark of divine consciousness that animates your being. This spark cannot be destroyed, cannot be corrupted, and cannot truly be imprisoned, though it can be made to forget itself. And that forgetting is precisely what has happened. Through mechanisms we will explore, your consciousness has been deliberately suppressed, your memory systematically erased, and your attention relentlessly focused on the material dimension to prevent you from recognizing your true nature. The birthmark on your body represents a critical component in this system of suppression. It is not merely a random accumulation of melanin or a harmless genetic variation. It is a physical manifestation of an energetic signature placed on your consciousness before you entered this body, a tracking mechanism that allows certain entities to identify and target you across multiple incarnations. These entities understand that not all human souls are equal in their potential to awaken and remember their divine origins. Some individuals carry a stronger connection to the source, a brighter light, a frequency of consciousness that cannot be completely suppressed no matter how intense the conditioning becomes. These are the souls who, throughout history, have become mystics, revolutionaries, truth seekers, and teachers who challenged established systems of control. These are the individuals who refused to accept comfortable lies, even when truth brought suffering. These are the ones who asked dangerous questions, pursued forbidden knowledge, and remembered fragments of what they truly are despite every attempt to make them forget. If these words are awakening something inside you, let me know by leaving a like. Your engagement tells me you're ready for deeper truths. The winter of 1945 brought an unexpected gift to humanity, though few recognized its significance at the time. In the rugged terrain near the Egyptian town of Nag Hammadi, a local farmer named Muhammad Ali al-Saman was searching for mineral-rich soil to use as fertilizer when his digging tool struck something solid beneath the sand. Excavating further, he uncovered a sealed earthenware jar, approximately 3 feet tall, buried deliberately near the base of limestone cliffs. His initial hesitation about opening the vessel, motivated by local folklore about protective spirits guarding buried objects, gave way to curiosity about potential treasure or valuable contents. What he discovered inside would eventually shake the foundations of historical understanding about early Christianity and reveal teachings that institutional authorities had spent centuries attempting to erase completely. The jar contained 13 leather-bound manuscripts, ancient texts written in Coptic language, carefully preserved and hidden by individuals who understood they were protecting knowledge that would otherwise be destroyed. These were not the writings of heretics and deviants, as they would later be characterized by defenders of Orthodox Christianity. They were the preserved teachings of communities who practiced what they understood to be the authentic message of Jesus, traditions that preceded the political consolidation of Christianity under Roman imperial authority. These manuscripts, collectively known as the Nag Hammadi Library, contained over 50 separate texts representing diverse perspectives within early Christian mysticism. Among them were Gospels attributed to Thomas, Philip, and Mary Magdalene, apocalyptic visions, theological treatises, and cosmological explanations that painted a radically different picture of reality than what appears in canonical scriptures. What makes these texts particularly significant is not merely that they were hidden, but why they were hidden. By the 4th century, after Christianity had been adopted as the official religion of the Roman Empire, ecclesiastical authorities began the systematic process of defining orthodox belief and eliminating alternatives. Church councils were convened to establish which texts would be considered authoritative scripture and which would be condemned as heretical. Bishops and theologians with political power determined which interpretations of Jesus' teachings would be permitted and which would be criminally prohibited. Any text, tradition, or teaching that contradicted the emerging orthodox consensus was targeted for elimination. Books were confiscated and burned. Teachers were exiled or executed. Communities were scattered and suppressed. The Gnostic Christians, who possessed mystical interpretations of Jesus' message that emphasized direct personal knowledge of the divine rather than obedience to religious authority, became prime targets of this purge. Knowing that their sacred texts would be destroyed if discovered by church authorities, members of these communities made the difficult decision to hide their most precious manuscripts, hoping they might survive for future generations. They sealed them in jars, buried them in remote locations, and presumably died without revealing their locations, trusting that when humanity was ready, these teachings would resurface. The Nag Hammadi discovery fulfilled that hope. After 16 centuries in darkness, these forbidden teachings returned to human awareness, offering a window into perspectives that had been violently erased from Christian tradition. What they reveal about the nature of reality, the origin of human consciousness, and the forces that govern material existence contradicts nearly every assumption embedded in mainstream religious teaching. According to these texts, the universe we inhabit was not created by the supreme divine consciousness, but by a lesser, ignorant being who mistook itself for the ultimate deity. This entity, called the demiurge in Gnostic terminology, fashioned the material world as a trap for divine consciousness, a prison designed to harvest energy from souls who have forgotten their true nature. And this false god did not work alone in constructing your cage. The demiurge commands a hierarchy of subordinate entities called Archons, a Greek term meaning rulers or authorities. These beings are described not as demons in the medieval sense, but as cosmic administrators, entities that govern the structures and systems of material reality. They are the architects of the matrix, to use contemporary metaphor, the intelligences that maintain the illusion of separation from the divine source and perpetuate cycles of suffering, forgetting, and reincarnation. According to the text known as the Apocryphon of John, one of the most important manuscripts found at Nag Hammadi, the Archons participated directly in the construction of the human body, each contributing to different physiological and psychological functions. They designed human beings to serve as containers for divine consciousness, vessels that would imprison the light while keeping it ignorant of its own nature. But they faced a significant challenge in this endeavor. Consciousness cannot be truly controlled or destroyed. The divine spark within humans retains its essential nature regardless of the limitations imposed upon it. Some souls maintain stronger connections to their source, brighter lights that resist the suppression more effectively than others. These individuals represented a threat to the entire system of control, because if they fully awaken to their true nature, they could potentially help others awaken as well, creating a cascade effect that would undermine the entire archonic structure. The solution to this problem was systematic surveillance and targeted suppression of these high-potential souls. The Archons developed methods to identify individuals who carried the strongest divine light, marking them at the level of the energetic body before physical incarnation. These marks would then manifest in the physical body as birthmarks, creating a visible correspondence to the invisible tracking signature. Throughout that person's lifetime, these marks would allow the Archons to locate them, monitor them, and deploy specific strategies to keep them distracted, discouraged, and disconnected from their spiritual power. This is why your life has unfolded the way it has. This is why you have faced obstacles that seem specifically designed to break your spirit. This is why relationships, careers, and opportunities have collapsed just as you approached breakthrough moments. This is why you have struggled with depression, anxiety, addiction, or a persistent sense of meaninglessness despite having every external reason for contentment. You were not being punished for sins in past lives. You were not experiencing random misfortune or bad luck. You were being systematically targeted by intelligences that recognized your potential to awaken and took proactive measures to prevent that awakening from occurring. The birthmark you carry is evidence of this targeting, proof that you are considered dangerous enough to warrant such elaborate suppression across multiple lifetimes. If this video awakens something within you, it's because there are truths about Jesus that were never meant for the masses. The ebook Jesus Beyond the Church reveals what was removed, burned, and rewritten. Erased teachings, silenced texts, and spiritual codes that survived outside institutional control. This is not a religious book. It is a record of what was left outside the church and of what you were never meant to find. For a limited time, you will receive 3 exclusive super bonuses, unlocked only for those who access it now. The link is in the pinned comment. If you made it this far, it may not be a coincidence. Some truths reveal themselves only when we are ready. Now that you comprehend the origin and purpose of these identifying marks, the next essential understanding involves grasping the operational mechanics of how this system functions in practical terms. The Archons did not simply attach a symbolic brand to your soul and then abandon you to navigate existence independently. The marking is integrated into a sophisticated network of control that operates simultaneously across multiple dimensions, specifically engineered to ensure you continue producing the specific resource they require for their own survival. Unlike you, these entities do not possess an intrinsic connection to the infinite source of consciousness. They are not divine sparks incarnated into limitation. They are, according to the Gnostic understanding, artificial constructs of consciousness, created by the demiurge to serve administrative functions in the material realm. As such, they lack the capacity to generate their own life force or sustain their existence through internal means. They require external fuel, a continual supply of energy harvested from beings who do possess that divine spark. And that fuel is precisely what you have been producing throughout your entire life, often without the slightest awareness that you were being drained. The specific form of energy the Archons harvest is dense, low-frequency emotional vibration. Fear, shame, guilt, rage, despair, hopelessness. These emotional states generate energetic frequencies that serve as nourishment for entities that cannot access higher forms of consciousness. This is why the world around you seems deliberately designed to provoke these exact emotional responses. The economic systems that create artificial scarcity and perpetual anxiety about survival. The social structures that generate comparison, competition, and feelings of inadequacy. The media environments that flood consciousness with fear-inducing narratives about threats, disasters, and dangers. The political systems that manufacture division, hatred, and tribalism. The religious systems that cultivate guilt, shame, and unworthiness. None of this is accidental. These are farming techniques, methods of emotional agriculture designed to keep humanity producing the low-frequency emotional energy that sustains the archonic hierarchy. Your suffering is not punishment for moral failing. Your struggles are not lessons you need to learn. Your pain is not evidence of divine testing. You are being farmed, and the birthmark on your body serves as the identifying tag that ensures the harvesting continues across every incarnation. But the deception extends even beyond death itself, into the very moment you believe you've finally escaped. The mechanism of control does not end when your physical body expires. According to the comprehensive Gnostic understanding of consciousness and reincarnation, death is not liberation, but transition into another phase of the same system. When your consciousness separates from the dying body, you do not immediately return to the infinite source from which you originated. Instead, you encounter what appears to be a tunnel of brilliant light, often described in near-death experiences as peaceful, loving, and welcoming. Beings appear who seem to be angels, ascended masters, spirit guides, or deceased relatives. They communicate that you must return to physical incarnation, that you have unfinished business, unresolved karma, important lessons still to learn. They present a comprehensive review of your life, highlighting your failures, mistakes, and moral shortcomings. They convince you that another lifetime in the physical realm is necessary for your spiritual growth and evolution. And you, having been conditioned throughout your physical life to trust authority figures and believe in the narrative of karmic debt and spiritual progression, agree to return. Your memory is erased through what some traditions describe as the drink of forgetfulness. Your consciousness is compressed back into the limitations of identification with form, and you are inserted into another human body to begin the cycle again. The birthmark reappears in the same or similar location, the surveillance system reactivates, and the harvesting continues exactly as before. This is the trap that Jesus was teaching his disciples to recognize and transcend. The Gospel of Philip, another text from the Nag Hammadi collection, contains passages that reveal the depth of archonic deception. One particularly illuminating section explains that the rulers, meaning the Archons, wanted to deceive humanity because they perceived that humans shared kinship with what is genuinely good and divine. So these rulers appropriated the names and symbols of what is truly sacred and applied them to their own counterfeit creations, using language and imagery to deceive people into worshipping false representations while believing they were connecting with authentic divinity. In practical terms, this means the Archons hijacked spiritual vocabulary and religious symbolism. They created false lights that mimic the true source. They fashioned deceptive entities that impersonate genuine divine beings. They constructed entire theological systems, afterlife scenarios, and reincarnation mechanisms designed to perpetuate soul recycling while convincing people they are experiencing spiritual advancement. The tunnel of light that appears at death is one manifestation of this deceptive system. The beings that present themselves as guides are often archonic projections. The karmic review is a manipulation tactic designed to generate guilt and ensure voluntary return to the physical realm. Understanding this does not mean you should fear death or become paranoid about spiritual experiences. Fear itself is a low-frequency emotion that feeds the system you are attempting to transcend. What this knowledge provides is discernment, the capacity to recognize authentic spiritual experiences from archonic simulations. The birthmark you carry has functioned as a component in this multi-lifetime system of deception and energy harvesting. But consciousness, once awakened to truth, possesses the power to transform any mechanism of control into an instrument of liberation. What was placed to bind you can be reclaimed to free you. What was designed to track you can be reprogrammed to guide you. The process of transformation begins not with complex rituals or esoteric techniques, but with the simple act of recognition. When you direct conscious awareness towards something that has operated in darkness, you dissolve its power over you. The Archons depend absolutely on ignorance. Their entire system functions only as long as you remain unaware of it. Your knowledge is their vulnerability. Your awareness is their destruction. And your awakening is their greatest fear. If someone you know needs to hear this, share this video with them. Some messages are meant to reach specific souls at specific times. The second stage of liberation involves actively reclaiming what has been used against you. This is not symbolic language or metaphorical teaching. This is energetic alchemy, the deliberate transformation of frequency and function through directed consciousness. The birthmark that has served as a chain across multiple lifetimes can be converted into a key that unlocks dimensions of power and awareness the Archons never intended you to access. This transformation operates on a fundamental principle that ancient mystery schools understood, but modern spirituality often overlooks. You do not defeat darkness by engaging it in combat. You do not escape systems of control through resistance and opposition. Those strategies simply generate more of the low-frequency emotions, fear, anger, frustration, that feed the entities you are attempting to transcend. True liberation occurs through transformation, the alchemical process of taking the exact instruments of your imprisonment and transmuting them into tools of awakening. This requires a shift in relationship with the mark itself. For your entire life, if you noticed it at all, you perceived it as a neutral or meaningless feature of your body, a random cluster of pigmented cells with no particular significance. Now you understand it represents something far more profound, a tracking signature placed by forces seeking to suppress your consciousness. But even that understanding is incomplete if you stop there. The mark is on your body, which means it is now yours to command. It is not separate from you, not an external object imposed upon you from a distance. It is integrated into your physical form, which means you possess complete authority over it. What you consciously claim and integrate cannot continue to control you unconsciously. What you bring into awareness cannot continue to manipulate you from shadow. The practice of reclamation begins with deliberate, focused attention directed toward the birthmark with full consciousness of its true nature and intentional assertion of your sovereignty over it. This is not visualization in the sense of imagining something that is not real. This is recognition of what is real at the energetic level and consciously directing that energy through focused intention. Find a time and location where you can be undisturbed for at least 15 to 20 minutes. Turn off devices, eliminate distractions, and create an environment that supports deep internal focus. Sit or recline in whatever position allows your body to be comfortable and your mind to be alert. If the birthmark is located where you can physically touch it, place your hand directly on it. If it is on your back or another inaccessible location, simply bring your awareness to that specific area of your body. Feel its presence. Acknowledge that it exists. Recognize what it represents without judgment or emotional reaction. It is neither good nor bad. It is a mechanism, and mechanisms can be reprogrammed. What happens next will begin a transformation that cannot be reversed. Begin breathing slowly and deeply, allowing your nervous system to settle into a state of calm, focused awareness. As you inhale, visualize light entering through the crown of your head, but this must be understood correctly. This is not the false light of the archonic tunnel that appears at death. This is not the light of any external savior or religious figure. This is your own light, the radiance of your divine spark reconnecting with its source, the infinite consciousness from which you originated. Feel this light as warm, golden, alive with intelligence and awareness. It is not foreign to you. It is the truest part of you, the aspect of your being that predates all incarnation and transcends all limitation. As you continue breathing, direct this light downward through your body, allowing it to flow through your head, neck, torso, and into the specific location where your birthmark exists. See the light surrounding and penetrating the mark, not attempting to erase it or remove it, but transforming its frequency, illuminating what was placed in darkness, recalibrating what was programmed for surveillance into a receptor for divine consciousness. As the light fills and surrounds the birthmark, begin speaking these words, either aloud if you are alone, or silently within your own awareness if others are nearby. The words themselves carry power, but only when spoken with full presence and genuine intention. Do not rush through them like a memorized formula. Feel the meaning and truth of each phrase as you speak it. I recognize this mark for what it truly is. I acknowledge the system that placed it and the purpose it was meant to serve. I reclaim this mark as my own. What was placed to bind me now serves to free me. What was designed to track me now guides me home. I am not this body. I am not this name. I am not this lifetime. I am the eternal spark of infinite consciousness, and I remember who I am. I command that this mark now function only according to my will and my highest good. It is mine. I am sovereign. I am awake. Continue breathing, allowing the light to intensify around the mark. You may experience various physical sensations during this practice. Some report warmth radiating from the birthmark itself, as though it is generating heat. Others feel tingling, vibration, or subtle energetic movement across their skin. Some experience emotional releases, tears, laughter, or waves of feeling that rise and pass without apparent cause. These are signs that the work is occurring at deeper levels than conscious thought, that the energetic signature of the mark is genuinely being altered through your focused intention and reconnection with your divine nature. This practice is not a one-time event, but the beginning of an ongoing relationship with your own sovereignty and spiritual authority. Return to it regularly, especially when you feel the weight of suppression, when life circumstances seem designed to break you, when doubt and despair threaten to overwhelm your awareness. Each time you practice, the reclamation deepens, the transformation intensifies, and your connection to your true nature strengthens. Over days and weeks following this initial practice, you may notice shifts in your external reality that reflect the internal transformation. Dreams become more vivid, often containing memories or information that seems to come from beyond this lifetime. You may experience sudden recognition of patterns that have repeated throughout your existence, seeing clearly for the first time how specific challenges or relationship dynamics have followed you across years or decades. You may encounter people who feel strangely familiar, as though you have known them before, in contexts you cannot quite remember. Most significantly, you may feel a growing sense of inner authority, a quiet confidence that does not depend on external validation or approval, and knowing that you are not what they told you that you were. Make sure you're subscribed with notifications on. What comes next will take you even deeper, and you won't want to miss it. There is a reason Jesus shared this specific knowledge only with his 3 closest disciples, rather than teaching it openly to the crowds who followed him. This was not elitism or spiritual hierarchy. It was strategic protection. Those who carry the brightest sparks, those whose birthmarks identify them as high-value targets for archonic surveillance, face intensified opposition the moment they begin to awaken. Teaching this knowledge to newly awakening souls before they had developed sufficient strength and discernment would have placed them in immediate danger, attracting levels of spiritual and psychological attack they were not yet prepared to handle or understand. The unfortunate reality is that awakening is not a peaceful, gentle process despite how it is often portrayed in popular spirituality. When you begin to remember who you are, when you start to reclaim your power, when you transform the mechanisms of your own suppression into instruments of liberation, you become exponentially more visible to the forces that have worked across lifetimes to keep you unconscious. The intensity of opposition you face often increases precisely because you are succeeding, because you are becoming genuinely dangerous to the system that depends on your ignorance and submission. This is why so many individuals who begin serious spiritual work suddenly face catastrophic life disruptions. Relationships that seemed stable suddenly explode. Financial security evaporates without explanation. Health crises emerge. Legal problems appear. Accidents occur. Loved ones turn against you. Professional reputations are destroyed. These are not coincidences, and they are not evidence that you are doing something wrong or being punished by the universe. They are counterattacks, strategic deployments of pressure designed to force you back into unconsciousness, to convince you that awakening is dangerous and that you should return to comfortable sleep. The Archons understand that direct spiritual confrontation rarely works with awakening souls. You cannot be forced to worship false gods if you have recognized them as false. You cannot be threatened with eternal punishment if you understand there is no eternal hell. So they attack through the structures of material life itself, through money, relationships, health, and reputation, through the things your ego identity most fears losing. The goal is not to destroy you physically, that would simply release your consciousness from the body, but to break your will, exhaust your energy, and convince you that resistance is futile and submission is the only path to peace. But there is something they did not account for in their calculations. The intensification of opposition is actually evidence that you are succeeding. If you were not a genuine threat, if your awakening were not real, if your light were not growing brighter, they would simply ignore you. The amount of resistance you encounter is proportional to the power you are reclaiming. This understanding transforms your entire relationship with difficulty and challenge. What previously appeared as evidence of failure becomes confirmation of progress. What seemed like punishment becomes proof of your growing strength. The birthmark that once functioned as a tracking device for suppression now serves as a badge of honor, evidence that you are considered dangerous enough to warrant such elaborate opposition. You are not among the sleeping masses who pose no threat to the system. You are among the awakening ones, the individuals whose consciousness is expanding beyond the boundaries designed to contain it. And yes, that comes with intensified challenge, but it also comes with something far more valuable. It comes with truth, with authentic power, with genuine freedom that cannot be granted or taken away by any external authority. The teaching that Jesus preserved for his inner circle included not just the recognition of the marks and the understanding of the system, but practical instruction for navigating the increased opposition that accompanies awakening. One of the most important principles is detachment from outcomes in material reality. The Archons attack through the things your ego identity clings to as sources of security and self-worth. If you derive your sense of identity from your career, they will attack your career. If you define yourself through relationships, they will destabilize your relationships. If you measure your worth by financial success, they will create financial crisis. The liberation comes not from protecting these external structures, but from releasing your identification with them, recognizing that your true self, the divine spark, is completely untouched by anything that happens in material reality. You are not your job. You are not your relationships. You are not your bank account. You are not your reputation. You are eternal consciousness temporarily operating through a physical form, and nothing that happens to that form or its circumstances can diminish what you truly are. Another essential teaching involves the transformation of perception around suffering itself. The default human response to pain is resistance, the desire to make it stop, to escape it, to find someone or something to blame for it. This resistance generates the low-frequency emotional energy that feeds the archonic system. But when you understand that suffering is often evidence of your own growth and awakening, that challenges are targeting you specifically because you are succeeding, your relationship with difficulty transforms completely. You stop feeding the system with fear and victimhood. You stop generating the energy they require for sustenance. Instead, you meet each challenge with awareness, recognizing it as confirmation of your path rather than evidence of failure. This does not mean you seek out suffering or romanticize pain. It means you stop allowing difficulty to convince you that you are failing or that awakening is a mistake. You maintain your course despite opposition, rather than allowing opposition to deter you from your course. This steadfastness is what the Gnostic traditions called Gnosis, direct experiential knowledge of truth that cannot be shaken by external circumstances or intellectual arguments. The birthmark you carry identifies you as one of the dangerous ones, an individual whose consciousness carries the potential to fully awaken, and, through your awakening, inspire others to remember their own divine nature. This is why you have been marked, monitored, and systematically suppressed throughout this lifetime, and likely many lifetimes before. But now you possess what you did not have in previous incarnations. You have conscious recognition of the system. You understand the mechanism. You have reclaimed the mark and transformed its function. The game has changed, and you have become genuinely dangerous in the exact way the Archons feared you might. Not dangerous in the sense of violence or destruction, but dangerous in the sense of awakened consciousness that cannot be controlled, manipulated, or harvested. You are becoming what they worked so hard to prevent you from becoming. And that is precisely what this moment in human history requires. Something unprecedented is occurring on this planet at this exact moment in human history. Something the architects of control did not anticipate and cannot now prevent despite their most intensive efforts. The frequency of Earth itself is shifting, rising, transforming in ways that make it increasingly difficult for the old systems of suppression to maintain their grip on human consciousness. More individuals are awakening now, in this generation, than at any previous point in documented history. The veil that separated human awareness from recognition of its true nature is becoming increasingly transparent. Knowledge that was successfully suppressed for millennia is now spreading rapidly through networks of communication that bypass traditional gatekeepers of information. Ancient texts that were buried in desert sands are now available to anyone with internet access. Teachings that were once reserved for secret societies and inner circles are being shared openly. And individuals who carry those identifying birthmarks are recognizing themselves and each other in unprecedented numbers. You are not isolated in this awakening. You are part of a wave, a collective shift in consciousness that has been building momentum for decades and is now reaching critical mass. The Gnostic traditions actually predicted this moment. Several texts found at Nag Hammadi describe future ages when the hold of the Archons would weaken, when souls would remember their origins in unprecedented numbers, when the system of control would become visible to those it was designed to suppress. We are living in that prophesied time. The structures and systems that govern human society are becoming increasingly obvious in their dysfunction and corruption. The false lights are being recognized as false. The authorities that once commanded unquestioned obedience are being questioned and challenged. The narratives that shaped collective consciousness for generations are crumbling under scrutiny. This is not societal collapse or civilizational decline, despite how it may appear from within the chaos. This is the beginning of liberation, the death of old systems that must occur before new possibilities can emerge. And you, with your birthmark and your awakening consciousness, are an essential component of this transformation. Your awakening matters not just for your own liberation, but for the collective evolution of human consciousness itself. Because what happens when one genuinely awakens sends ripples through the entire system. Consciousness is not isolated in individual bodies, despite how physical perception makes it appear. At the deepest level, all consciousness is interconnected. All sparks are expressions of the same infinite source. When one individual breaks free from the archonic system of suppression and memory erasure, that breakthrough creates a resonance that makes it easier for others to break free as well. Your awakening literally changes the frequency of the collective field, making awakening more accessible for everyone around you, even those who have no conscious awareness of what is occurring. This is why the Archons invested so much effort in keeping you specifically suppressed. They understood that you are not just another soul to be harvested. You are a potential catalyst, an individual whose awakening could trigger awakening in dozens, hundreds, or thousands of others through sheer resonance and example. The birthmark identified you as this type of high-impact soul, someone who needed to be monitored and suppressed with maximum efficiency to prevent exactly what is now beginning to occur. But their system is failing. The marks they placed to control you are being transformed into symbols of recognition among awakening souls. The very mechanism designed to isolate and suppress you has become a way for you to identify others who share your journey, your challenges, and your purpose. When you look at the birthmark on your body now, you see something completely different than what you saw before this knowledge entered your awareness. You see evidence of your value, proof that you were considered threatening enough to warrant tracking across lifetimes, confirmation that your spark burns bright enough to challenge a system designed to keep billions unconscious. That mark is not a curse or a flaw. It is a calling card, a declaration that you belong to the dangerous ones, the awakening ones, the ones who remember. And every time you practice the reclamation technique, every time you consciously reconnect with your divine nature, every time you refuse to be broken by the challenges that target you, you strengthen not just your own liberation, but the collective wave of awakening that is transforming this entire reality. The responsibility that comes with this knowledge is significant but not burdensome if you understand it correctly. You're not required to save the world or wake up every sleeping soul you encounter. You are not responsible for fixing broken systems or convincing others of truths they are not ready to receive. Your responsibility is simply to continue your own awakening, to maintain your connection to your divine nature despite all opposition, to transform your own consciousness from suppressed and unconscious to aware and sovereign. That is enough. That is actually more than enough, because your awakened presence itself becomes a beacon, a frequency that others can attune to when they are ready, a living demonstration that liberation is possible even within this system designed to prevent it. Some people will be drawn to you precisely because of this frequency. They will not always understand why they feel pulled towards you, but something in their own consciousness recognizes the resonance of awakened awareness and seeks to align with it. These are your soul family, others who carry similar marks, similar missions, similar frequencies of consciousness. You will recognize each other not through any external characteristics, but through a sense of immediate familiarity, as though you have known each other across many lifetimes because you have. This is why, if someone came to mind while you were watching this video, someone who carries the same sense of difference, the same unexplainable knowing, the same feeling of being targeted by circumstances that seem designed to break them, you should share this message with them. That impulse to share is not random. It is recognition at the level of consciousness, your awakened awareness identifying another soul who is ready to remember. They may not consciously understand what they are ready for, but their higher self, their divine spark, has been preparing them for this exact information at this exact time. Your sharing might be the catalyst that begins their conscious awakening. It might be the confirmation they needed that they are not insane for perceiving reality differently than everyone around them. It might be the key that unlocks recognition of their own birthmark and its significance. You cannot force awakening on anyone, and you should not try. But when you feel genuine resonance or recognition, when someone comes to mind unbidden during teachings like this, trust that impulse. It is not your ego or personality making that connection. It is your divine nature recognizing another divine nature that is ready to remember. As this video concludes, understand that you are not at the ending of anything, but at the beginning of everything. Behind you lie lifetimes of forgetting, cycles of incarnation without memory, moments when you looked at the mark on your skin and felt nothing. That version of you served its purpose by bringing you to this exact point of recognition, but that version cannot accompany you into what comes next. Ahead of you lies something the Archons never anticipated despite all their planning and control. A soul that knows, a spark that remembers, a being who has transformed the instruments of suppression into tools of sovereignty. They marked you because they feared what you would become if you ever awakened. Now you are becoming it, not someday in the distant future after more lifetimes of preparation. Now, in this moment, with this knowledge, through this recognition, the mark on your body is no longer a chain, it is a crown. It identifies you as royalty among souls, one of the dangerous ones whose consciousness threatens the entire architecture of control simply by being awake within it. You are not a victim, you are not broken, you are not lost. You are marked because you are powerful, you are tracked because you are dangerous, you are suppressed because you are a threat. And now you know. If this message resonated with something deep inside you, if you felt recognition rather than just intellectual interest, leave a comment below with the words, "I remember." Not for the algorithm, not for engagement metrics, but for yourself, to anchor this moment of awakening into your conscious reality. This declaration matters. It is your statement of sovereignty, your announcement that you have crossed a threshold from which there is no return. And if someone came to your mind while watching this, someone who carries the same weight, the same difference, the same unexplainable knowing, send this to them. They are ready. That is why you thought of them. Subscribe and activate notifications, because more hidden teachings are coming. What you have learned tonight is just the beginning. There are deeper layers, more advanced practices, additional knowledge about who you are and why you are here that will be revealed in upcoming transmissions. You are not a mistake. You are not broken. You are not lost. You are marked because you are chosen. You are tracked because you are dangerous. You are suppressed because you are powerful. And now you finally know. Welcome home.